There is a moment in history that no textbook can fully explain. A moment when the greatest civilization on Earth, an empire of 60 million souls, stretching from the cold shores of Britain to the burning sands of Egypt, simply stopped existing. Not over centuries, not over decades. In what historians still struggle to comprehend, the Roman Empire in the West collapsed so rapidly that entire cities were abandoned within a single generation. Tonight, we open a door that most people walk past without ever knowing what lies behind it. The year is 476. A teenage boy sits on a golden throne in the Italian city of Ravenna. His name is Romulus Augustulus, and he is the last Roman emperor of the West. He is barely 15 years old. Outside the palace walls, the sound of Germanic soldiers echoes through marble corridors that once housed the most powerful rulers on earth. The boy emperor does not fight. He does not run. He simply waits, because there is nothing left to fight for. The empire is already a ghost wearing the clothes of the living. But how did it come to this? How does an empire that built roads still used today, that created laws, still studied in every university, that engineered aqueducts carrying water across mountains, simply vanish? That question has haunted historians for over 1,500 years. And the answer is not one single event. It is a chain of disasters, decisions, and betrayals so complex that even now scholars argue about which link broke first. If that question pulls something inside your mind, stay here because this story only gets deeper. To understand the fall, you must first understand what Rome truly was. At its peak in the 2nd century, the Roman Empire controlled the entire Mediterranean world. From Spain to Syria, from North Africa to northern England, Roman law governed daily life. Roman coins bought bread in markets separated by thousands of miles. Roman soldiers patrolled borders so vast that a messenger riding at full speed would need months to cross from one end to the other. It was not just an empire. It was the world itself for everyone living inside its borders. The Romans believed their empire was eternal. They called their city the Eternal City. Their poets wrote that the gods themselves had decreed Rome would rule forever. Citizens could not imagine a world without Rome any more than we can imagine a world without electricity. But beneath the marble and the military parades, cracks had been spreading for generations, and the people who could have fixed them were too busy fighting each other to notice the foundations crumbling beneath their own feet. The first crack was political. In the 3rd century, Rome experienced what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. In just 50 years, more than 25 emperors ruled, and almost all of them died violently. Assassination became the most common method of political transition. Generals declared themselves emperor, fought civil wars, and were murdered by their own guards within months. The empire nearly tore itself apart from the inside before a single foreign enemy ever crossed the border. Power became a death sentence wearing a purple robe. While Romans killed each other for the throne, something was stirring beyond the northern borders. Vast tribes of Germanic peoples, the Goths, the Vandals, the Franks, the Saxons, had been watching Rome for centuries. Some admired the empire, some feared it. Many had served in Roman armies as mercenaries and allies, but now, pushed by hunger, by climate changes that ruined their harvests, and by the terrifying westward expansion of the Huns from Central Asia, these tribes began moving south and west in numbers Rome had never seen before. The pressure was building like water behind a cracking dam. Emperor Diocletian tried to save the empire by splitting it into 2 halves, east and west, each with its own emperor. For a time, this worked. Constantine the Great reunited the empire briefly and built a magnificent new capital called Constantinople in the east. But the division revealed a painful truth. The western half was weaker, poorer, and far more vulnerable to attack. The east had wealthy trading cities, strong walls, and a navy that controlled vital sea routes. The west had overstretched borders, declining tax revenue, and an army increasingly filled with the same Germanic warriors it was supposed to be defending against. In the year 376, a desperate group of Gothic refugees appeared at the Danube River, the empire's northern border. They were fleeing the Huns, a terrifying nomadic force sweeping across the steppes. The Goths begged Rome for permission to cross and settle inside imperial territory. Rome agreed, seeing an opportunity for cheap soldiers and laborers. But Roman officials treated the Gothic refugees with shocking cruelty. They starved them, cheated them, and according to some ancient sources, even forced them to sell their own children as slaves in exchange for dog meat. The Goths did not forget. 2 years later, in 378, the furious Gothic warriors met the Roman army at the Battle of Adrianople in modern-day Turkey. What happened on that field shocked the entire ancient world. The Goths destroyed the Roman army completely. Emperor Valens himself was killed on the battlefield. His body was never found. Adrianople was not just a military defeat. It was a psychological earthquake. For the first time in centuries, Rome seemed mortal. The myth of Roman invincibility died on that blood-soaked field alongside its emperor. After Adrianople, the Western Empire entered a slow spiral that accelerated with terrifying speed. In 410, the unthinkable happened. Alaric and his Visigoths marched into the city of Rome itself and sacked it for 3 days. Romans wept in the streets. The great Saint Jerome, writing from faraway Bethlehem, said the whole world perished in one city. Rome had not been conquered by a foreign enemy in 800 years. The psychological impact was devastating beyond anything military strategy could measure. If Rome could fall, then nothing in the world was safe. But the empire staggered on, wounded and bleeding. For another 66 years, Western emperors continued to rule from Ravenna, a swampy city chosen because it was easier to defend than Rome itself. But these emperors were shadows of their predecessors. Real power belonged to Germanic military commanders who controlled the armies. The emperors were puppets, and everyone knew it. Tax revenues collapsed because provinces had been lost to invaders. Trade routes were disrupted, cities shrank, libraries burned. Skills that had taken centuries to develop were forgotten within a single generation of chaos. Then came the final act. In 476, a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer decided the puppet show had lasted long enough. He marched into Ravenna with his soldiers, deposed the teenage Emperor Romulus Augustulus, and sent the imperial crown and robes to Constantinople. He did not declare himself emperor. He simply announced that the Western Empire no longer needed one. And just like that, with no great battle, no dramatic last stand, the Western Roman Empire ceased to exist. The silence that followed was louder than any war. What came after is sometimes called the Dark Ages, though many historians reject that term today. Cities that once held hundreds of thousands of people shrank to a few thousand. The population of Rome itself fell from over 1 million to perhaps 20,000. Roads crumbled. Aqueducts broke and no one knew how to repair them. Literacy plummeted. The sophisticated economy that had connected 3 continents fragmented into local subsistence farming. Europe would not see cities as large as Roman ones again for nearly 1,000 years. That fact alone should send a chill down your spine. But here is what most people miss about this story. The Eastern Roman Empire, which we now call the Byzantine Empire, survived for another 1,000 years after the West fell. Constantinople remained one of the greatest cities on earth until 1453. The East preserved Roman law, Roman engineering, and Roman knowledge, while the West descended into fragmentation. This means that Rome did not truly die. It transformed. Part of it vanished almost overnight, while another part endured for centuries longer than most empires in all of human history. At English Mindset, we believe that stories like these are not just about the past. They are mirrors reflecting our own world back at us. Every civilization believes it will last forever. Every powerful nation assumes its systems are too strong to fail. But Rome teaches us that complexity, division, inequality, and the failure to adapt can bring down even the mightiest structures humanity has ever built. If this story made you think about the world differently, even for a moment, then this journey was worth every second we spent together here tonight. The fall of Rome was not caused by one thing. It was caused by everything. Political corruption ate away at leadership. Military overextension stretched resources impossibly thin. Economic decline destroyed the tax base that funded everything. Climate change and plague weakened the population. Mass migration created pressures the system could not absorb. And perhaps most importantly, the Romans themselves lost faith in their own institutions. When the people inside an empire stop believing in it, the walls become just stone. Some historians argue that Rome did not fall at all. It simply changed into something else. The Germanic kingdoms that replaced it adopted Roman customs, Roman language, and Roman Christianity. French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian are all languages born directly from Latin. The Catholic Church preserved Roman organizational structures and carried them into the medieval world. In a sense, Rome is still alive in every courtroom that uses Roman legal principles, in every language descended from Latin, and in every government that separates powers the way Rome once tried to do. So why does this matter to you today, right now, listening to these words? Because the story of Rome is ultimately a story about what happens when people stop paying attention to what holds their world together. It is a story about what happens when short-term power becomes more important than long-term stability. It is about what happens when leaders serve themselves instead of the people who depend on them. If you have ever looked at the world around you and felt that something fragile is holding everything in place, then you already understand Rome better than you think. If this story moved you, if it made you see history not as dead facts but as living warnings, then do something small but meaningful right now. Leave a thought below about which part of Rome's story reminded you most of our modern world. Share this with someone who loves history or someone who needs to hear it. And if you felt something real while listening tonight, staying connected with this channel means we continue this journey together through the greatest stories ever lived. Next time you walk on a paved road, remember who built the first ones. Next time you stand in a courtroom, remember where those laws were born. Next time you hear someone say that a powerful nation could never collapse, remember a 15-year-old boy sitting alone on a golden throne in Ravenna, watching soldiers carry away the last symbols of an empire that once ruled the known world. Rome did not fall in a single night. But when it finally fell, the darkness that followed lasted for centuries. History does not repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes. And tonight, if you listened carefully, you could hear the echo.